Hey everybody, welcome back to the property. Not quite the weather I had envisioned for the first day of cutting hay for 2020. Still a little bit cloudy, kind of cool, not really much of a breeze, and only about 65 degrees, but with the promise that the weather is going to get nice later today and then remain nice for the next 2 days, both Tuesday and Wednesday this week. We're going to get a head start and get cutting here. As you can see, I've already cut just a little bit. One pass here along the top side, and then I did 3 passes along the side just yesterday. I did that just to make sure everything was working well with the hay bind. There wasn't any binding. It was cutting well. The new cutter bar was set properly. There's a few things I want you to notice during the video, one of which I can kind of point out right now. The edge of the fields where we sprayed a few videos ago, that's doing exactly what I want it to. Just about everything's dead along there. The other 2 things, this field in particular is very thin. This, like I said yesterday, this is where the house is going to go. Hopefully should have some good news on that in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I haven't done anything with this field the last couple of years, mostly because I anticipated building a little bit sooner than we're actually getting to. So this hasn't had any fertilizer, no lime, nothing like that for the last few years. So it's a little thin, still not too bad. It'll make a few bales. I'll get a few bales out of it. The other thing I want you to notice is that I'm cutting fairly high. I have the hay bind set so that I'm cutting this stuff at about 5 to 5.5 inches tall. I set it higher in the beginning of the season and then toward the end of the season because usually the ground's a little more wet and I don't get the same weather as I do in June and July. It's usually not, 80 or 85 degrees and sunny all day long. So having the grass cut a little bit longer like that, or having what's remaining be a little bit longer, it allows the stuff that's cut to kind of sit on top and dry a little bit quicker, a little bit better than it normally would. So the second field that I'm going to cut today is just below this one. You'll notice in that field too, the hay is not near as thick as I'd like it to be, and it's not as long as I'd like it to be either, but I chose at the beginning of this year, with everything going on in the world right now, with the way the economy is, and us just getting ready to build the house, I didn't want to put any money out into these fields, mostly because this field is the one that the house is going to be in, and then the one that I'm cutting after that, our driveway is going to come right up through there. So a decent portion of each of those fields is just going to be torn up anyway, and it's going to end up being grass that I mow with the lawnmower instead of for hay. That field down there is still going to be hay, just a smaller portion of it, probably the end 30 feet or so will just be driveway and grass. So I didn't want to spend the money, do any heavy fertilizing or anything like that. Plus, it's easier in the beginning of the season, like I mentioned, just to get everything dry when it's not so thick. So after I get this first cutting off, then I'll go ahead and fertilize, and everything will be thicker. It'll dry better for the second cutting with the weather that we have, down the road in June, July, and August. So that being said, I'll go fire up the tractor and we'll get started. Here, not much hay here. There's not going to be much to ted. I don't even know if it's worth tedding. I may do that once tomorrow, but it's not really going to give you a good idea of what it looks like to ted. We'll have to see how that next field is. Hopefully that's much longer, and then we'll rake it up. Normally what I do is I'll rake 2 windrows, or two windrows from the cutter together. So I'd rake this one and this one together, put them right here, and then come through with the baler and bale that. When it's this thin, in this entire field, which isn't a very big field, I might just rake it all into maybe 3 separate windrows or something like that. But we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, it's definitely not as thick as it even first appeared. So we'll go down and start taking care of that next field. So all things considered, I'm really happy with how this field is turning out so far. You know, like I said earlier, I didn't put any fertilizer or anything on these fields the end of last season or the beginning of this season. And with the temperature swings we had, you know, it would get warm for a couple days at a time, but then it would get so cool. Only in the last week, it started to get consistently warm. So I'm really happy with how this field is turning out so far. Most of the way done, but I just wanted to show you a couple things while I still have the hay bine hooked up to the tractor and I have a few more passes to make. So as you might have been able to see in a couple of the earlier clips, the hay bine, the mower, is offset to the tractor. So the reason for that is that then I'm not driving over any hay that I'm trying to cut. My first time around each field, I make right turns. So this part of the tractor and the hay bine are towards the inside of the field. And I do all those rounds, and then at the very end, I turn it around and I go in the opposite direction and just get that one last pass that I did have to inevitably drive over in order to make the first cut. But that's why the hay bines are offset like they are. So just kind of reiterate what I had said in one of the previous videos when I was working on this machine. The hay's cut by the sickle bar down there, those knife sections that we replaced. And in normal circumstances, this reel that spins around, it spins this direction, it would pick up some of this grass that's laying down. Early season grass, at least here on this property, tends to be a little bit more stalky, so it stands up and that's not much of an issue. But as you'll be able to see as we make our way through the summer, those tines on there really help to pick up the grass and feed it into the cutter bar. Then it shoots it back along that plate down there and sends it through these rollers. There's this roller here and then there's one underneath, and these grooves correspond to some of the bump outs in the roller below, and that crimps the hay and then sends it out the back. We've got a little bit more hay to cut in this field yet, and then that's going to be it for today. As you can see, it's finally gotten nice, exactly what they predicted. Probably about 75 to 80 degrees right now, mostly sunny with a light breeze. So that'll be perfect to start drying this stuff up today. I'll be able to come back tomorrow, ted it once, maybe twice, and then come back on Wednesday, maybe ted it once, we'll see, probably not, but rake it up and then bale it on Wednesday afternoon. So I'm gonna finish up the last bit of this field, and then we'll call it a day. Just like that, the first cutting of the 2020 hay season in a couple of the fields is done. The grass is less than stellar, but like I said before, that doesn't really bother me right now. We'll fertilize it after we get this first cutting off, and things will really start to sprout up for the second and third cutting. It'll be much longer, definitely a lot thicker, and that's kind of where we make our money, so to speak. But tomorrow we'll come out. I'm going to do a little bit of tedding. This second field was definitely better than the first, so I am going to come out and I'm going to ted this once tomorrow, and then on Wednesday we'll come out and we'll rake it and bale it. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you on the next one.